My name's James. I'm the producer for the 3 Inch Fools. And I'm a co-founder of the 3 Inch Fools, set up the company with my brother Stephen in 2015, and we've been running it together ever since.
Marvelous. And then I always ask my this question at the start of the interviews: where did your kind of journey with the arts begin? Where did you know that you wanted to have a career in it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think as young boys growing up, me and my brother, we were taken to the theatre quite a bit. We really enjoyed playing musical instruments, learning to play the piano, the guitar, that sort of thing. And so music has kind of always been in our bones, as it were. And then I actually went to a performing arts school when I was younger, was pursuing being a performer. My brother Stephen pursued more kind of music composition and did a bit of directing. And yeah, we just kind of got to a place where we'd both left university and we thought, what next? What can we do with our passions that we've kind of developed over the years? But yeah, it was as young boys going to see theatre really that sparked the interest.
And then obviously, you say 2015 is when you started 3 Inch Falls, but when did that kind of inspiration come to start the company?
Yeah, so at university, I was really lucky to do some outdoor touring Shakespeare, and got involved in a few theatre societies at university, and then we knew we wanted to do something that combined our love of history and historical buildings. Our parents actually work in tourism and do tailor-made tours for clients all around the UK visiting historic sites. So as children, we'd kind of visited historic buildings a lot. So we really just loved history and then theatre and music. And we thought, what can we do to tie those things together? So outdoor touring theatre to historical landmarks felt like the thing, really.
And how do you reflect? I know it's nearly 10 years now, but how do you kind of reflect on the journey so far you've had?
Yeah, it is scary when you think about it being 10 years because it's all flown by so quickly. And of course we've had challenges in the middle of that, particularly with COVID, that kind of was quite a big thing. But we've come on quite a journey and it's all been quite organic, the growth. We've just kind of we started off small, doing just a 2 week tour around a handful of venues in the north of England, and it's just grown bit by bit. And now we're on the road for pretty much 4 months. So yes, it's been quite organic, really, the growth.
And for those unfamiliar, how would you describe the kind of style of the group?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, this is obviously it's open air theatre and it's about embracing the great British outdoors. And we do this at historical landmarks and beautiful sites around the UK. But the style of our theatre is very kind of it's playful, it's vibrant, it's quite fast paced. And when you perform with a troupe as small as 4 people in our cast this year, playing, kind of, I think in Henry VIII there are 40 different characters. So the audience sort of see all the cogs behind the performance. A lot of like on stage costume changes. It's very, very playful, and we kind of show the audience everything. And it's a lot of fun.
And as you say, this year you've got two plays, which is The Comedy of Errors and The Secret Diary of Henry VIII. How did you settle on these two for this year?
Well, we were really, really keen to offer something fresh to audiences. I think sometimes, you particularly with Shakespeare plays, you can kind of get into the rhythm of doing just a small selection of Shakespeare shows. And we'd never done Comedy of Errors before. Shakespeare's shortest comedy. I guess that kind of fleet of foot, kind of fast-paced, energetic style that we have kind of fits well with Comedy of Errors. And then we're always keen to offer something that's not a Shakespeare play, but still kind of plays around with British history. In the past, we've done a show about the Gunpowder Plot. This year, we thought, why not do something about Henry VIII? Big historical figure. People love the Tudors. What's not to like, really?
Yeah. And do you have a target audience in mind when you are kind of preparing the shows?
Good question. It's a really broad demographic that we perform to. And And because we perform at so many different venues, this summer we're doing 105 performances at about 80 different venues. The audiences that we see at each venue do really vary from place to place. We've got a really growing family demographic to our audiences. So we've really kind of emphasized the idea of our shows being accessible for people from 4 to 94. It's for everybody. But it's certainly a family hit, our shows.
Yes. And then obviously you're a producer. How do you go about like selecting necessarily which venues you do go to?
Yeah, it's a lot of these venues are venues that we've kind of been going to for several years.
Yeah.
It's always about finding somewhere that's got that historical note, and I guess a beautiful outdoor setting, because it's not just about the show, it's about all the aspects of the evening, going somewhere special, somewhere historic, a beautiful setting, taking a picnic. In For many of our performances, audiences bring picnics.
Yeah.
So it's just finding a space that has that sort of historical link, aesthetic charm, and then particularly with some of our like non-Shakespearean shows, Henry VIII this year, we've really looked at what historical buildings, palaces, stately homes are there that have connections with Henry VIII.
Yeah.
And there are loads of castles and sites around the UK that have links with Henry VIII. So we're going to a few places that have some sort of link to the content of what we're doing.
And what's kind of the biggest challenge you face year on year in your role as a producer? Obviously, as you say, post COVID, it's kind of difficult getting back on the feet. But what's the biggest challenge you kind of face?
That's a really good question, and I think one of the main challenges in terms of our creative output is just making sure that we're constantly offering something fresh. It can be very easy to just find a performance style and an aesthetic and sort of sit in that, and not really kind of develop and grow. And I think it's about finding a way of making sure that we're always doing something that's a little bit fresh, a little bit new, but that we're always taking our audience with us, because we've got a really good loyal following around the UK. We've got people that come and see our shows each year as a bit of a tradition for them each summer. So we want to make sure that we're, kind of giving people what they already know and like about the 3-inch Fools, but offering something a little bit new and interesting each time. I think that's kind of quite a key thing for us to focus on.
Yeah, of course. And then one of the fascinating notes, obviously, I'm reading kind of your website. You built a stage, obviously, for this one, or the company.
Yes.
How did you kind of go about designing that and building it?
Yeah. I have always really enjoyed doing kind of practical things, woodwork. My dad actually kind of taught me growing up a lot of kind of woodwork skills. And we really wanted our stage to be a timber structure so that it really just sort of fits in with the surroundings.
Yeah.
It's got to be kind of rustic and aesthetically pleasing, and not kind of jar with the outdoor setting. So we wanted something timber. And then we decided to go with, we've got this basically a thrust stage that's also got a couple of island sections that sit out amongst the audience. So we wanted a stage design that brought our audience close, and the drama feels like it's spilling out into the audience. I think that's the thing about outdoor theatre, is that there's a real opportunity to interact with your audience in a way that isn't always possible in an indoor theatre, because outdoors you're all in the same light. It's a shared light space. You can see the faces of everybody. So we wanted a stage design that just brought the action and the audience right together. And it was just a case of building that, and each year we kind of add new elements to the stage. A couple of years ago we added in a trapdoor. We've got lovely festoon lights that sort of sweep between the different sections of the stage. So it's all quite sort of pretty, really. It's aesthetically pleasing, I hope.
Yes. And then obviously, as you say, it's open air. How do you guys prepare for those moments when the British summertime does turn?
Yeah. It does. I mean, I think we make sure that we build into our rehearsal process and our casting process, finding performers that are really good at responding to those challenges, not just because it can be it's a motivational challenge to build the stage and in the rain, perform in the rain,
Yeah.
but it also presents opportunities for interaction with your audience when you've got, everybody in the audience has come togged up in their waterproofs and they're sticking the show out with you. They see the actors on stage getting wet. There's got to be some sort of acknowledgement about the situation that we're all engaging with the show in the pouring rain.
Yeah.
And I think finding performers that are really good at just responding to those little challenges that being in the open air provides you, you can actually find quite a bit of comedy and theatrical kind of fun in it.
Yes. And then obviously these kind of, you say, the historical settings, and then in the world of Henry VIII, if you were thrown into that world, how do you think you would have coped?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think if I were thrown into the world of Henry VIII, it would so much of the luck of that would be what circumstances I'd be born in. If I were born in the Tudor court, which is where our play is set, I think I'd have to be very, very crafty and really plot my course to rising to a little bit of power, but not getting too powerful so that it all crumbles. So I think, having a little bit of an important role, but maybe taking a slight backseat would be my approach, because Henry got rid of people who maybe reached too far in terms of trying to hold on to power. They often lost their head. I'd hope I'd make it through.
I'm sure you would. And then similarly, if you could sit down with Shakespeare and ask him one question, what would you choose to ask him?
I would love to ask him, did it come easy writing these plays? Was that something that you could literally just sit down of an afternoon and just really easily write a play? Or did you really have to struggle with it, wrestle with it? I'd love to know. Yeah, I'd love to know how easy he found it.
Yes. And then I ask these two questions to all the people I interview. Simply, what does theatre mean to you?
I think the thing that I really love about theatre is that it's a real thing that's happening in a present moment. It's an engagement between a performer and their audience. And I think that's really, really special, particularly in a world where things are becoming often more and more virtual and screen-based. It's really special to hold on to those things that happen in the present moment in a face-to-face setting.
Yes. And then when, like you say, the COVID times have been and gone, but what kind of keeps you inspired to keep making theatre?
I think that I get a real buzz from doing it. It's a creative endeavor. I mean, I know I'm a producer, but I do see that as quite a creative role at times. And I think if you've got that inside you that you want to be a creative person, it fuels you. And you sort of have to find an outlet for your creativity. So I think that, and then I think the only other thing I'd add into that mix is when you get feedback that's positive from your audience and you know that they really love coming to see the shows, that certainly fuels you. Yeah.
Yes. And then my final question for you, what do you hope an audience member takes away from seeing either of the productions this year?
On a really basic level, I just want them to have had a good evening, an evening that they'll go, yeah, we had great fun that evening. And that it was a special occasion for them. But thinking more specifically about the shows, I really hope that our performances make people inquisitive about the genius that is Shakespeare, the historical periods that we're looking at, Henry VIII. There's so much to learn about the Tudor court, and I really, really hope that younger audience members see those shows and think, yeah, I want to know more about who those characters were in real life. What's the real history there?
Marvelous. Well, James, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's lovely to chat to you. It just leaves me to say the shows start. I'm going to read this. I'm not going to read the whole list because there's 100 people. It's Early House. It starts on 25th of May and it runs all the way through until the 20th of September.